definitely when I came out in the newspapers, I made a statement that I may be the first member of a royal family in the world to come out, but not the only one. There's I would say, a fourth coming out. First was coming out to yourself, coming out to your family, coming out to the world, and the fourth coming out is parents coming out to the world. That is the most difficult thing. I met a guy who was hired to kill me, and I'm really a lucky man. I mean, see, Kennedy and all these people didn't get to meet their assassins, they were killed. But I actually met my assassin one day. I'm a warrior. I belong to a warrior clan, and my ancestors have also fought wars, and I'm also fighting. I mean, the difference is they were fighting with enemies. I'm fighting with my enemies are hypocrisy, bigotry, and homophobia.
So I have a series of questions for you. My first question for you is coming out, the phrase coming out. One aspect is coming out to yourself, and one aspect is coming out to everyone apart from yourself.
Yeah.
For you, did both of these things happen simultaneously, or was it one before the other?
In my case, both my coming out was happening at different times and different circumstances. So I came out to myself, I would say, as late as 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that yes, I kind of have an identity now and accept myself as a gay man. But coming out to my family happened probably 7 years from then.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a long span between, that period. And then, of course, coming out to the whole world happened, say, 4 years after that.
Yeah.
So, so there were like almost phases, yeah. To live a life of lie wasn't easy for me, because I had to lead a double life and, tell lies that, okay, this is where I'm going, and I was not doing it wasn't making sense to me. It was like kind of living a double life, and I wasn't happy with that situation, and I was always burdened by this falsehood on me that, like, when will this falsehood kind of break away, and when I can realize the truth.
So, you have talked about, you were married and you had a divorce in about 13 months.
Yeah.
I believe 13 months from getting married. And you talked about guilt as being one of the catalysts that led you to your journey. Guilt of marrying someone and not being able to fulfill the marriage. Tell us a little bit about guilt as an emotion.
See, in India, it has always been the fact that being gay was never illegal. You're not criminal if you are gay. But the society and the communities around you always gave you that feeling that no, it is a sin, it's something wrong you're doing. So that was something which was causing me the feeling of guilt. And I mean, of course, when I got married, I had no clue about my sexuality. But that guilt feeling was that I wanted to be a good friend for my ex-wife. In fact, I had so many girlfriends in school, and I often wondered, when I was growing up in school, I used to always protect the girls.
Yeah.
Because I would not like them. The boys used to tease the girls, and that's why a lot of girls became my friend, because I was the only one in the class who was taking their side,
Sure.
So imagine coming from that childhood where I was understanding the issues of girls and having girlfriends in that term, and then I'm coming to a situation where the misery of my ex-wife is caused because of me.
Correct.
And I'm not able to do anything about it,
Correct.
So that was pushing me to that guilt feeling.
Growing up in royalty, coming out is hard enough for someone who belongs to the normal strata of society. Belonging to royalty, being a prince, what were the unique challenges you faced as opposed to somebody else who would be coming to terms with their sexuality?
When I was born in 1965 as the first male child in the family, my name was actually registered in the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India.
Really?
And it is still there,
Wow.
I mean, because you need to inform the government,
Yeah.
who's
the next heir in line?
Who in the commoner's family's name is registered in the government records,
Of course.
Of this sort. So, and then I was raised in that manner. We had all the protocols down. Even after the privileges were withdrawn, still we continued living in a very privileged lifestyle. I had the fortune of living up in a mansion in Mumbai. So living in a mansion in Mumbai with 22 servants running all over your place, not even having to get a glass of water from the fridge, was there. But the sad thing which happens in royal families is that you have no communication with parents. I was raised brought up by a nanny, a governess, and with whom I had so much love and affection and attachment that I thought she was my biological mother. We couldn't make friends, so I literally grew up playing with the servants' kids, and whatever little friends I had in school were mostly girls. And then in our homosocial country where homosocial behavior is there, girls are not allowed to mix with boys. So I had no choice.
You mentioned earlier about your trip to US.
Yeah.
Was that your first exposure to homosexuality?
Yes. So I was in New York in 1976 to coincide with the bicentenary celebrations of the US Independence Day. And it was just a coincidence that one day in a subway, I was with my parents, and suddenly I see a scene of two men kind of lip kissing each other, which was something most out of the blue, which I have not even seen a man and a woman kiss each other. And I said, what is that? I mean, is that something which happens? Like, I mean, and before I could even react, my parents pulled me out of it. Like, no, that's a forbidden part. You can't even look at that, So that was my first exposure. When I look back now and wonder that, that I was gay. I mean, and you're born gay, you're not made gay.
So, in a society like ours, we are conditioned and brought up to think about our communities before ourselves.
Yeah.
Log kya kahenge, or, especially parents, what will they think? And can't I sacrifice this much if it makes everybody happy?
Yeah.
And to a degree, that is what you did with your marriage. How did you get over this feeling of being okay with upsetting others to live the way you wanted to live?
See, when I realized, and I, of course, give my credit to Shokrao Kavida, who's the first gay activist of India, he made me realize and make me comfortable and made me come to terms with the reality, and that I'm gay person, and there are hundreds or thousands or not millions of people like you around the world. And so when I kind of got the feeling that guilt feeling was removed and the pride feeling came into me. I was feeling proud that I am gay. So what, So when that came into my mind, I said I must do something for the other people in the community. I need to cross barriers and break protocols, break the royal protocols, so called, and step out of my comfort zone and try to see how I can be beneficial to others. But of course, I have to anger a lot of people. I have to make other people upset, and they will not like me doing that. But I have to do some things.
When you came out publicly, you were disowned.
Yes.
By your family.
Yeah.
And there was press coverage around the world about what had happened then. When you look at it now, a decade plus later, what is your relationship today like with the royals, the royal families of India? Has that evolved?
Yeah, definitely. When I came out in the newspapers, I made a statement that I may be the first member of a royal family in the world to come out, but not the only one.
Correct.
So the fact was that I knew there were other royal family members, and they also knew that I know that they are gay.
Right.
So they were the most hit. I would say they were scared that now this guy's been this shameless. He's outed himself in public, and now it's our chance. And then the entire royal image is going to go down the drains. So they had actually instigated my parents to take the step of disowning. Saying you have to shut him up.
Otherwise, so that step came from there.
Yes, because my father had in a interview much after we reconciled, he mentioned in this interview that he took this action because of the conservative society of India, which pressurized him to take this step. So it was obvious that there's so much of hypocrisy in our country and so much of bigotry is there. People don't want to accept the truth, And then as times went by, a lot of media importance was given to my story. I mean, the fact that my news reached Oprah.
Multiple times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Much like it. Within a year of my coming out, I was on our show and a lot of other shows I did. So, but that kind of tried to change the mindset of the people into thinking that what he's doing is not just for himself, but it is for a larger cause. And we need to think before being homophobic. We need to sit down and question ourselves that are we doing the right thing by protesting against him or objecting to what he's doing, or should we support him? So people are waiting and watching. I mean, when my disownment and all happened, my parents also were totally against me. They threw me out of the palace, knowing fully well that I was gay 4 years back.
Right.
Still,
There's an image to maintain.
Yeah, exactly. So they never expected that I'm going to kind of, break open the barriers and, come out of the closet and the royal closet and, inform the whole world. They never expected it. There's I would say, a fourth coming out. First was coming out to yourself, coming out to your family, coming out of the world. And the fourth coming out is parents coming out to the world. That is the most difficult thing. Because, see, you have to face this whole homophobic, bigoted, hypocritical society. So even though parents accept the children, it's not necessary that the people around them will accept. And they make it very difficult for the parents to live. So that coming out for me is the most difficult thing.
But why is it, do you think, as a society, and still, even in the 21st century, why are we so obsessed with what is going on in other people's lives?
See, that's a problem. I mean, we are always wanting to know what the other person is doing. And we know for the fact that when there's a crisis, this so-called society or this community, which word we use, they never come to your help. We are so selfish. We are only interested. We see if we like when others suffer. We don't like when other people are benefiting. So they want to see drama, and India is full of drama.
Right.
There's enough drama happening in. You don't even need Bollywood. If you just watch Indian, if you just watch Indian families, you'll get to see drama happening in each and every home.
To you, what has been, ever since you've come out, what has been the most special moment for you? In terms of the way someone has reacted or a message you may have gotten from someone, which has been the one that's touched you the most?
I actually met my assassin. And I kind of laugh over this thing because I'm so lucky that I met a guy who was hired to kill me. And I'm really a lucky man. I mean, see, Kennedy and all these people didn't get to meet their assassins, They were killed. But I actually met my assassin one day, and I was sitting I was to manage a gas station, and I was sitting one day, and this guy comes to me and says, I want to talk to you something privately. He said, I was hired to kill you. So I said, okay, then what are you doing then? I'm standing in front of you. Where are your guns? Where are your swords? Kill me. Go for it. I mean, I'm your easy prey. He said, no, that thing got cancelled because they defaulted in my payment and also it didn't happen. I remember even when I was on the Kardashian show, Chris asked me this, that what did you sacrifice by coming out? I said, Chris, you can get a husband, you can get a house, but you cannot get a life back. So I kind of put my life at stake. I said, come whatever may. I'm going to be honest about myself and I'm going to tell the world about myself because I'm a warrior. I belong to a warrior clan and my ancestors have also fought wars and I'm also fighting. I mean, the difference is they were fighting with enemies. I'm fighting with my enemies are hypocrisy, bigotry and homophobia.
Sir, as a country over the last decade, it has become legal to be gay. Of course, last year's verdict has sort of opened up opportunities for the entire community. What is your perspective on that today? And do you think this is going to sustain?
See, I think we have got a very strong legal foundation of recognition of what we were supposed to get in 1947 when India got independent and the Indian Constitution was made. The very law which was not even an Indian law, which was a draconian British colonial law based on Victorian moralities, was coming from the land of Kama Sutra and Khajuraho. To have a law like that even get carried forward after independence was a mockery of our democracy and our republic. We are Indian citizens. We have equal rights as guaranteed to us by the fundamental rights of the Indian Constitution. Where are our rights? Where is our right to privacy? Where is our right to equality? Where is our right to live with dignity and respect? Where is our right not to be discriminated? So, based on those fundamental rights, we are now free. So, 6th September is actually the free Independence Day for the community. We might celebrate 15th August, but 6th September 2018 is actually our freedom Independence Day. However, the bigger challenge lies now. Because, when we were doing this case, it was just a bunch of judges, whether it was the Delhi High Court or the Supreme Court, we were dealing with. Now we have to deal with the whole nation. And not just a nation, I mean, it's the whole globe. which has witnessed this victory of winning this case, where there are a lot of people who don't even know what this law was. There are so many who don't know why this law was need to be changed. And some of them don't agree with it also.
Yeah.
So we need to do a lot of work now. The real task starts now, where a lot of education needs to be done, a lot of awareness needs to be created, a lot of sensitization has to be done at all levels and at all stakeholders. But definitely changes are happening. I must say one thing, that we definitely have a lot of allies with us now. We have a lot of supporters. We have and when I say allies, are those who are not from the community. What I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to build more and more allies. The more allies we build, the more easier it will be for us to change. See, if a father is accepting the son as gay, then that father becomes an ally for another father who is not accepting the son.
Sure.
So we need those kind of role models. We need those kind of allies. One very good thing which has happened in India is that amongst the youth population, there's more awareness. And I am getting a lot of invitations from the youth, from universities, schools, colleges, even TED Talks, where they're inviting me to come and talk. And I think that's a very important thing, because the youth is the future of our country. You never know. The future of today's youth will be the Prime Minister, could be the President of the country, or could be the Chief Justice. Or the Chief Justice of a Supreme Court,
So tell us a little bit about your trust and what exactly you're working on right now at the moment.
Okay, so my foundation, that's the Lakshya Trust, was founded by me around 19 years ago, in the year 2000. And it was basically formed to create a platform where we could get the community together. And that time I was working mostly for the gays and the transgenders, where we could empower them. We could, get them to talk their issues. And especially with regards to HIV/AIDS, because HIV/AIDS had come into India in 1980s. And it was a blessing in disguise for us for HIV, because it was because of HIV coming into our country that we got empowered. And why? Because the government realized that in order to fight this epidemic, they need to work with these vulnerable populations such as ours, commercial sex workers, transgenders, injection drug users. And that's where they came to us. And even it's a very paradox situation again in India, when even though we had a law in our Indian Penal Code which was criminalizing the homosexual act, we had the government who was funding and supporting projects like Lakshya Trust, and Lakshya is still being funded 80% by the government for specifically working for the men having sex with men population and transgender population.
Right.
So the minister is signing the contract with me, knowing fully well I'm gay, and knowing fully well that I'm working only for men having sex with men. And at that time, there was a law which was
prohibiting that.
So there was one question which came, that isn't government a criminal also?
Right. Right.
Because legally speaking, it becomes an abatement to crime. When you're helping a criminal, then it's an abatement. So those are the issues. And then, of course, I decided that I need to expand my horizon and not just focus on LGBT and HIV. If we try to include other people into our sphere of work and understand their issues, we can, expect that they also understand the issues. So I started working for tribal rights, for women rights, for children rights, for animal rights, and for many other things, So that way, now I work for a lot of other communities who have been deprived of or who have not been given their justice. And that's how I think I'm able to build the allies.
When you look back at your journey, is there anything you would change? Or did everything happen at the time it was meant to happen?
If you want to ask me if I regret something, then yes, I have only one regret in life, that I should have come out much earlier in my life than now, Maybe things would have been a little more different, but that is my only regret. But
right.
I will never regret that I came out. In fact, now I live a very happy life, very transparent life, and a life where I don't have to lie or hide anything from anyone. Yeah.
So with the example you've set, do you think the definition and vision of royalty has evolved or will evolve in the future, the way we see royalty in India especially?
See, royalty, I would say in India is still worship. There's still a lot of respect, especially with those families who have helped in contributing towards the development of their particular, and that goes to say even with my erstwhile Rajpipla also, the people have carried a lot of respect because they don't trust the politicians as much as they trust the royal families, even when there's crisis and all, they still come to me. Even as on today's date, I'm amicably settling cases between two families, without going to the court. Now, even government is looking at encashing us. I would use the word encashing on heritage tourism.
Yeah.
I mean, we so many foreigners are getting attracted because of the royalty to see the palaces, the forts, the museums, the festivals. Government is actually sponsoring a lot of our cultural festivals, Another good thing which is happening is LGBT tourism. And I was recently invited to talk on the World Tourism Conference in New York. And there was a lot of attention on India now, especially post Section 377, on tourists wanting to come to India, as it was seen prior to 6 September 2018, because of the fact that they have now realized that India has recognized the human rights of its citizens.
So there's an added interest to India for that reason.
Definitely. I am getting a lot of inquiries from a lot of travel tour agency. In fact, almost every month I am getting a lot of foreigners coming into the country, and it has definitely helped LGBT tourism. Travelers are feeling much more confident coming to India than they would have felt in the past. And with foreign exchange coming in through tourism, it's a good way to kind of help in the economic development. And if LGBT tourism is encouraged, is promoted, I'm sure, in the days to come, and with royal tourism, so I kind of play two parts,
You're on both turfs.
I sometimes joke, I stay in a city which is just 30 kilometers away from the world's tallest statue, the Statue of Unity. And whenever tourists come to visit us, they have only two agendas. They want to see the statue and they want to see me. The only difference is that they go to the statue, they have to pay for the entrance fee, and they have to pay for parking.
Right.
And then they come to me, then they don't have a visit. I am available for free, and I'm not a statue. I keep moving around.
The live version.
I'm also a tourist destination, So I'm kind of balancing between my royal lifestyle and a gay lifestyle, and kind of
trying to find harmony between the two. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.